Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Quinn from the James Hutton Institute, and I'm going to tell you about our case study in Wexford where we built a full-scale flood storage pond on a farm, the data we collected, the evidence this gave us, and how we scale this up for broader areas. So there's lots of data for the site. There's lots of data in Ireland. This is just an example of the GeoHigh map viewer, which can give you lots of data. We've got 5 metre ordnance survey digital elevation data, and our site was down the road to Fetard. And with 5 metre data, you can then create all sorts of products. This is flow accumulation model, and you can see the drainage network, and we can also derive the catchment boundary, which is about 3 square kilometres for our site down here. So if you actually look a bit closer at our site, you can see there's some areas where there's quite spread out flow, some areas where there's quite concentrated flow. We've also got this blue area, which is a floodplain, which we have used. So at our site, we found this nice floodplain on the farm, and we instrumented it with some water level recorders in the main ditch, either side of the draw off. We then built a nice big bund for the bigger pond, and we fixed the old bund down here. And this is a raised bridge, and water goes around. Okay, and so this is what the bund looked like shortly after construction. We wanted it to be about 1 metre high, but it ended up being about 80 centimetres high due to being a bit uneven, and we had a 30 centimetre pipe. We had a little sediment trap, but most of the sediment came out here, where the edge of the pond was. So we then made lots of measurements of the flow and the water level in the pond, and we had a lot of storms coming through. No shortage of storms in Ireland, and the problem was it was frequently overtopping. Okay, so once it got to about 80 centimetres, it was overtopping. And that's because it was filling too soon. So once the water started spilling onto the floodplain, the pond would be full in an hour or 2 hours, start overtopping. And that led us to this issue that eventually there was a weak point around the pipe, and the whole bund eroded away. But when we continued recording this, we realised it was still filling even with this big hole in the bund. So that told us that there was still too much water coming in, and we needed to get more water out. So we can actually model this, and I probably should have modeled this some more before the start, but COVID came. And the model's quite simple. Is you can draw off water at a certain level, go into a pond of a certain volume, and it drains at a certain rate and it has a certain height. So you can see if we do draw off at 0.4 meters cubed per second, the pond is full almost immediately. This is the small change in flow, and it's overflowing, overtopping across here, and a little bit comes back out later. So it's too small and not too much water coming in, not enough water going out. So can we optimize this pond? Okay, so we need to do some changes. So essentially, we're imagining that we can add more storage, maybe an extra pond. We've now raised the threshold substantially, and we've changed the diameter of the pipe going out. And this means that we trigger later, and we can have some impact. It's only a small amount, but that's how you would optimize this pond. Okay. So we went back and we redesigned our pond and its functioning. And firstly, a new outfall that's not going anywhere. Can take over 1 meter cubed per second, and less water coming in. So we put these big logs in, which means you get up to about 90 centimeters before the flow starts coming in. And we also pondered whether there was more opportunities for ponds in this little floodplain. And there is. There's one on the farm here and one on the farm here. And we found lots of others. So we think there's no shortage of storage on this area. So if we do have a large amount of volumes, we've imagined having 10 ponds now in the valley, giving us 7,500 meters cubed at this scale, and we've raised our inlet. We can then optimize the outlet, so it actually drops down again now to get the option, and you can see we can have a big impact. A lot of assumptions about these all filling at the same time, and exiting at the same time. But you can see that this is the kind of level you need to be at to make progress. So we also checked out the impacts of routing, i.e. the speed of the flow, and we ran a complicated hydraulic routing model for this at 1 meter resolution on some synthetic surfaces that we created, and we were able to replicate something similar to the Leeds site with leaky dams in the ditch and some leaky dams with a bit of floodplain. And with models you can add as many as you want. So we ran just a couple of scenarios to tell you here. We ran lots more. Here's one with some floodplain and a little bit of storage, but then almost out of frustration we put one example with a big pond in, just to show you the following, that scenarios with the leaky barriers just can't get the volume, and it is volume that's making the difference. Okay, but this is only a 1 in 2 year event. Okay, once that gets bigger, the impact goes down and down, so it's storage, not routing at this scale. We also walked over lots of farms in Ballycanoe. We're really with the smart buffers people, and we identified a few locations to see if there was storage on the farms. But the most important thing is we kind of concluded that there is storage on farms, and it should be relatively easy to get about 2,500 cubic meters per kilometre square, which is about 2.5 millimeters of rainfall. Doesn't sound like a lot, but Ballycanoe down here floods on about 3 millimeters per hour. So we just give you. So for this example, we have a nice drain flowing down through the landscape where we've suggested some sediment traps, but the eureka moment is just this nice floodplain at the bottom. So if we take any surplus flood flow, we can take it across here, a little swale into here, and we can easily get 1,000 meter cubed of storage. So what does all this mean? So we can find some locations, we can optimize our offline ponds, so we can scale these up. So we do this with the rainfall runoff model. Ours is called Craft, and it has a surface cultivation layer, it has the main soil and some groundwater. We can also put our surface water through a sediment trap, but the most important thing here is that as it comes down onto the riparian area, we can represent some online nature-based solutions, but more importantly, we've now built in an offline nature-based solutions option. So if we actually run the model, it's got quite a complicated interface, but we pulled out a nice big storm here to look at. And basically what we've done here is we've targeted 1.5 again, as we've said before, and that allows, this is the pond filling up. Okay, it's got a maximum depth of 2 millimeters, and you can see that it's having an impact on the storm a little bit. So then you then go and optimize that, which is what we did before. So now we've allowed ourselves the option to improve this even more. So we've again targeting the high flow, and what we've done is we've tried to increase the amount of storage we've got. So that would be 2,900 meters cubed on a 1 square kilometre, and we've optimized our outfall, and we're still going for 1.5, and now you can see we can get this really nice filling of the pond at the right time and get this reduction from the peak down to here, which is what we're after. So that is what we're attempting to achieve. Just a simple application of Craft to Ballygow, our Wexford site, and we've pulled out a little area here with a couple of nice storms. We've imagined that we have got our 7,500, i.e. 2,500 meters cubed per kilometre square, and you can see that when it targets that high flow, can bring down that high flow significantly. And we've also allowed for imagined a dense network of nature-based solutions, buffer strips, wetlands, etc. And this is the kind of effect we'd expect it to have, but hopefully having good impact on water quality as well. So that's it. I think we've got good evidence for how much storage we need, how to make the ponds work, and so we've got some advice for you. So this is the last one. The findings and recommendations. We feel that there is ample room in the landscape to store flood flow, and that finding these nice locations, they seem to be available on most landscapes. Then you put in a nice bund, probably with about 1 metre high. Nobody seems to notice it. Very little land is taken, and it's kind of tucked away in the corner, and you only really see it when the big storm comes through. But you probably need quite big ponds, so about 1,000 metres cubed each if you're going to have a 1 metre high bund. The tricky bit is really knowing what is a big storm. So I know when a big storm goes through, it will create 2 to 3 millimetres per hour. But we can look at design storms such as a 1 in 100 year return interval storm and try and manage that. Okay, so we need to build up this network of ponds to get to about 2 to 3,000 meters cubed per kilometre square. So that's hard to do, but you can do it. But then we optimize the offline ponds so that they're filling up at the right time, and that's usually by targeting 50 to 70% up the hydrograph towards peak flow is where you need to be. And more of a dark art to this last one, how much to size your pipe on the outfall. I would say an initial suggestion would be to have the drainage rate being about half the peak inflow rate, so you know that half the water's going into the pond. And just some really general sweeping recommendations is that if you actually put these together as a catchment runoff treatment train, then you can have some smaller features doing a little bit of work, but mainly targeting water quality, and a network of big offline ponds for flooding. So to get good at this, we need to build and test some more and show that they're working and how they fit into the landscape, where they are, how they work. So there is an opportunity here for us to join forces and actually look at some catchment scale issues for both water quantity and quality. But to do this, we need to get good at water quality management, but most importantly, flood management. And I believe that farming can be the front line for this management in the future. Thank you.